All right, today we're going to unpack a really fascinating and honestly, pretty surprising shift happening right now in the global oil market. It's a move that's being quietly orchestrated by some of the world's biggest powers, and it all kicks off with one big question.
So think about it. India has been one of Russia's absolute biggest customers for its crude oil, right? That relationship has gotten a ton of international attention. But now, seemingly out of nowhere, they're starting to buy oil from Venezuela? To figure out why, we have to pull back the curtain on a very complex geopolitical deal.
And this is the core of what we're talking about today. Indian refiners are making a huge pivot. And it's a move that's sending ripples far beyond just the energy markets. It's really all part of a much bigger story playing out on the world stage.
Okay, so first things first, let's get into the specifics of the deal itself. Who's actually buying what and from who.
The first movers here are India's state-run Bharat Petroleum, which is making its first ever purchase of Venezuelan oil. That's a big deal. And then you have the private refiner, HMEL, jumping back in for the first time in 2 years. They're buying a specific type of oil, Venezuelan Marais heavy crude, and the whole thing is being brokered by Vitol, one of the biggest commodity traders on the planet. So these are not small-time transactions. They signal a serious new direction.
And just look at this scale of this thing. We're talking about a minimum of 6 million barrels of Venezuelan crude heading to India just through April. I mean, this is not a test run. This is a substantial commitment right out of the gate, and it's poised to really shake up India's energy supply chain.
So you're probably asking yourself, why now? What changed? Well, this isn't just a simple business transaction between two countries. This is the direct result of some very high-stakes international negotiations, and the United States is right in the middle of it.
And we know this is official because of this quote right here from the U.S. ambassador to India. He confirms it flat out. The U.S. Department of Energy is in active negotiation with India's Ministry of Energy. So this isn't happening in some back room. It's being carefully and officially brokered at the highest levels.
So here it is, the quid pro quo, the core trade-off. It's basically a three-part handshake. First, the U.S. gets a major foreign policy win. India agrees to buy less Russian oil. In exchange, India gets a huge economic boost. The U.S. agrees to slash tariffs on Indian goods. And the final piece that makes it all possible? The U.S. helps clear the way for India to start buying that Venezuelan oil.
And this timeline really shows you how the U.S. used these tariffs as both a stick and a carrot. It started with a massive 50% tariff to put pressure on India. Then, as India started to reduce its Russian imports, the U.S. dangled the possibility of a tariff cut. And now, with India making this big pivot, boom, the punitive levy is gone, and the base tariff is dropping all the way down to 18%.
Okay, so now let's look a little closer at the central exchange here. This big swap of heavily discounted Russian crude for a new supply from Venezuela.
For India, this wasn't an easy decision. On one hand, you've got Russian Urals crude. It's been incredibly cheap because of sanctions, and India already has the supply chain all set up. But buying it creates friction with the West. On the other hand, you've got Venezuelan Marais. Buying it makes the U.S. happy, but it's a heavier type of crude which is harder to process, and it can be more expensive to ship. So India is basically weighing cheap, easy oil against better geopolitics and a new diversified supply.
And this chart right here just says it all, doesn't it? You can see how that massive reliance on Russian crude is set to drop off a cliff. And in its place, you see this new flow from Venezuela starting to grow. It's a really clear picture of this whole strategic pivot in action.
So let's zoom out for a second, because this deal isn't just about India's energy needs. It has major implications for every single country involved, and really for the entire global energy map.
Let's just quickly run through what's at stake for each player. For the United States, this is a huge foreign policy win. It directly cuts into Russia's oil money. For India, it gets a stable oil supply, and it smooths over trade tensions with a critical partner. For Russia, this is a massive blow. They're losing one of their best customers. And for Venezuela, wow, this is a golden opportunity to get back into the global market and breathe some life into its sanctioned economy.
So, where does all of this go from here? I mean, this deal is a pretty big move, but what does it really mean for the future of the global energy market?
Well, it's really important to remember that this oil deal is just one piece of a much, much larger puzzle. The U.S. ambassador has said that a final, comprehensive trade deal between the U.S. and India is nearly done, just a few tweaking points left. That tells you this energy pivot is part of a much deeper strategic alignment that's taking shape between these two powers.
And that leaves us with the big, final question, doesn't it? Is what we're seeing here the beginning of a truly durable, long-term partnership that's going to reshape global energy for years to come? Or is this just a pragmatic, short-term bargain, a marriage of convenience born out of the unique pressures of this very moment? I guess only time will tell.